After years of amazing looking trailers, we finally had a chance to go hands-on with Crimson Desert at Gamescom. And while the demo was mainly focused on showing off the combat and bosses, we also got a ton of gameplay from the developers that shows more of the open world and other activities. But let's focus on the combat first, because as you might have already seen, our main character Cliff has access to some very interesting moves. Sure, you got your basic light and heavy attacks with your sword and can use your shield to block and parry attacks, but he also has a very versatile kick that pushes enemies away. Like, a lot of his moves are actually inspired by wrestling and other martial arts. You can grab an enemy and dive bomb them into the ground, sweep kick an enemy's legs away from underneath them, throw a guy over your head with your shield, leap off enemies to land behind them. There are a ton of possibilities here. Some of these special attacks also cost stamina, which is the spiral shaped meter you see appear over the player character, and those also include the supercharged heavy attacks with your sword. My favorite move is much more subtle though, as Cliff can also turn his blade to reflect sunlight into an enemy's eyes to briefly stun them. Great to knock them out of a dangerous attack, and I love how this sells your character as a very experienced warrior using every trick at his disposal to win. Which you'll definitely need to, as the bosses we were able to fight in the Gamescom demo were definitely no slouches. What is really cool here is the variety on display, as they each challenge you in a different way. The Reed Devil is a very quick and aggressive boss, so that little reflecting sunlight trick can work wonders against him to buy you some space. He also starts summoning illusions of himself, and you'll need to break several totems spread throughout the boss arena to stop these. Luckily, Cliff has access to a bow that can fire explosive arrows to make short work of them. But then you also have the Queen Stoneback Crab, a giant rock-covered monstrosity that you need to climb in order to destroy specific weak spots. Because yes, like in Dragon's Dogma, you are able to climb bigger creatures and attack them while doing so, something that's actually required to beat this specific boss. You finish the beast off by utilizing a grappling hook-like skill where you swing around to build momentum, then crash into the final weak spot to destroy the creature. The same climbing mechanic can also be used against the Whitehorn, although this big angry creature just had a regular health bar instead of a set of weak points I needed to destroy. Again, the ability to climb it makes the fight feel right at home in a game like Dragon's Dogma, whereas the final boss we were able to try, the Stag Lord, looks right at home in God of War. He's a giant warrior, so that brings the fight to a more equal footing, but that also means that the Stag Lord can kick and toss you around the same way you do to normal enemies. In general, the fight feels very cinematic, also thanks to the short cutscenes that break up parts of the fight. Most bosses will have multiple health bars, going from blue to green and then red, and each full bar you take away triggers a nicely choreographed mid-fight cutscene that makes the fight feel even more epic. But the game is more than just boss fights. While we didn't get to play it at Gamescom, Pearl Abyss did release a ton of new open world gameplay that looks to be another highlight for Crimson Desert. For one, the map looks absolutely massive, something you can clearly see when jumping off one of the giant floating ruins in the sky. Luckily, you have a special cloak that allows you to glide that you can use to break your fall. Gliding also does not seem to cost any stamina, and you can speed up while floating around, so you can actually cross some pretty decent distance with this cloak. You of course also have your horse to quickly traverse the roads, and the team has hinted at camels, elephants and even dragons being available as mounts, although so far we've just seen horses. Something I do wish they'd shown more of in the new gameplay are Cliff's climbing skills, as earlier gameplay showed him having almost AC protagonist levels of parkour abilities, which would obviously be very fun to use. And speaking of Assassin's Creed, stealth is also part of your options when choosing how to engage enemies. You can sneak up to an unsuspecting foe and take them down quietly, and there's even a bit of social stealth involved. No blending in with groups, mind you, but certain outfits you get count as a disguise, meaning you can use them to get into areas you're not supposed to. So in this example, Cliff equips the Hernandian banquet attire to gain access to a castle currently hosting a banquet. Not sure how big a part these mechanics are going to play in the overall game, but it's cool to see they're there. And I kinda get the same feeling from the other items you are able to equip. As you can see from the menu, Cliff can equip a helmet, a chest piece, bracers and boots to protect himself, and next to that you have your bow/ranged weapon, a sword in your main hand and a shield in the offhand. You have stats as well, with armor pieces influencing your defense rating, but other than that it does not appear to be that in depth, apart from the battery stat that I haven't figured out yet. So that makes it hard to judge how impactful armor is going to be, and the same is true for weapons. In the demo we played and the gameplay they released, we only see Cliff use his sword and shield, although you can see at certain points in the gameplay that you can pick up weapons that are dropped by enemies. Not sure if those are permanently added to your inventory or that we can only use them for a limited time, by the way. But overall, I still don't think we should expect an RPG like Assassin's Creed Odyssey or The Witcher, something the developers also stated to Vextra Life during their preview. They specifically noted that while you can unlock new skills and equipment in Crimson Desert, it is an action-adventure open-world game, not an RPG. To put that into perspective, that means it's going to be closer to something like Breath of the Wild or Immortals, which is fine by me, but I do wonder what other rewards are in the game that incentivize you to explore the entire map. There are also some things that still need some work, and by the way, leave a like if you liked the video so far, and subscribe because we got way more content on Crimson Desert planned. So yes, while combat looks and feels very good, the camera can be a bit of a problem. There's no lock-on in the game, meaning that you need to keep the camera angled to keep the enemy in your sights. That's not always a problem, but fights with rapidly moving foes like the Reed Devil or big ones like the Whitehorn where the camera zooms out can get a bit chaotic. Like the Whitehorn can easily throw you around the stage and even launch you straight through small buildings, but it can be hard to recover and reorient after such a massive blow. And while the roads and towns are filled with people to make it feel alive, the actual conversations you have with them can still use some work. I noticed 2 conversations with Cliff ending in a very similar remark about the bounty on his head, so could be that this is placeholder, otherwise it's a bit strange. No, but overall we really enjoyed our hands-on, and we were also able to play around with some of Cliff's skills. There's one that can launch you straight into the air, a special melee strike that can stun even bosses for a couple of seconds, and a slowdown time ability for you to line up some ranged attacks Red Dead Redemption style. These don't cost stamina but are instead powered by another resource displayed next to your health bar, which I think is called Spirit. Another example of an ability we've seen in prior gameplay is a supercharged lightning attack, which the trailer implies is tied to beating a boss. And yeah, that also ties into what we are seeing in the new gameplay, as after defeating some of these bosses, a mysterious door leading to another realm opens up. This realm plays a major part in the story, and on your first visit here, you unlock the cloak that allows you to glide, so I can only imagine that there are similar rewards waiting for us on the other side of these new doors. Maybe beating a boss lets you earn a skill or a special item that is tied to them, or their moveset, which would be really cool, but that is just speculation for now. So while the Gamescom play session was really solid, it didn't let me experience the things that put Crimson Desert on my radar after watching the gameplay. One example is that you should be able to recruit your own warband members. We saw an axe-wielding troll called Unka in earlier footage, who appeared to be playable in that prior trailer as well. Cliff's story starts out with him being part of a warband called the Greymanes, and we see Unka here again. But they're in trouble as the Greymanes are under attack by another warband called the Black Bears. At the end of the prologue, Cliff is stabbed and thrown into a river, and one of your first goals after recovering is finding the remaining members of your warband. I am still curious if this is just backstory related or if there is more to it, like being able to recruit and play as other characters besides Cliff. Healing is also still a question mark, as I could only eat mid-combat to heal so far, which might involve gathering ingredients and cooking meals instead of having a regular potion to get you back on your feet. At the very least, the game still has me very intrigued, so I want to learn more and will be keeping an eye out for more info to share with you all. Rumors are that Crimson Desert is launching in Q2 of 2025, so between the start of May and the end of June, with new gameplay dropping soon. And when we learn more, we will of course let you know here, so subscribe to not miss our next Crimson Desert video, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and you can watch our previous video on the game by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one, goodbye.